So I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقينا وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد منا لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Peace be upon you, O Aba Abdullah, and upon the souls who have gathered in your courtyard. Upon you from us all is the peace of God forever, for as long as we remain and as long as night and day endure. And may God never make this our last pledge to visit you. Peace be upon Hussein and upon Ali, the son of Hussein, and upon the children of Hussein and upon the companions of Hussein. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So last night we walked. All of us set out across a desert behind a blind old man, Jabir, the son of Abdullah Ansari, the first pilgrim, and we followed his careful, sightless feet all the way to the grave of our beloved Imam al-Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him. And somewhere on that road, you may have felt it, the imagined voice of the awaited Imam that carries our maqtal, the voice that had been broken since the noon of the 10th, stood up and came home. We ended the 14th night on a road with a staff leaning forward on the stone pointing the way. And tonight the road arrives. Tonight is the night of Arbaeen, it's Eve. At this very dawn, the 40th day breaks, and the longest road in the world reaches its end at a single grave. 40 days ago, the sky fell. Tonight, we have come back. So I want to tell you at the very top what kind of night this is, because it's not like the others. For 14 nights, we have come again and again to death. Night after night, the Maqtal has laid the family of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon them all, in the ground before us, one by one, and we have wept, and the weeping was right. But tonight is not a night of death. Tonight, we have come to a homecoming. The caravan becomes home to the grave. The believer comes home to the covenant. And the whole series comes home to where it began, to a single candle on a grey stone, and closes the circle. Here's the takeaway of the night, and it's the gentlest one I've given you, and the most demanding, because it is about the rest of our lives, yours and mine. We are the letter the Imam of the age is still writing. Every believer is a drop of ink, and every community is a page. And the covenant is renewed every single morning. For 14 nights, we have been proving that the chain of witness is real and unbroken. From Abel, the first man wronged for his faith, down through the prophets and the imams to a child in a dungeon and the martyrs of our own years. We have called that chain unbroken. Tonight, I'm going to show you the last thing about it, the thing that turns all the history into something that we all do tomorrow morning before breakfast. The chain is not only behind us, it runs through us, and it is renewed at dawn. Please give me a salawat, and we move to the first point, which is two covenants and the difference between them.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه.
So before we begin, I have to clear up one small thing gently, because our own communities blur it all the time. And on the night it matters most, I want it clean in your hands. There are two texts that gather around these days, and they're not the same text. The first is Du'a al Ahd, the supplication of the covenant, taught by Imam al-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, and kept for us in Mafatih al-Jinan. And here is the thing to hold. Du'a al Ahd is a daily supplication, a morning prayer. The believer recites it every dawn, every single morning of his or her life, including this one, to renew his or her covenant with God and with the awaited Imam. It is an every morning prayer that happens to land this one morning of the year at the very moment its covenant comes due. The tradition tells us that whoever recites this for 40 mornings is counted among the helpers of the one who will rise. And hear the 40 in that, on the eve of the 40th day. The second is Ziyarat Arbaeen, the dedicated visitation of the 20th of Safar. This one is the Arbaeen text proper. It's preserved again in Mafatih al-Janan, and it is narrated. And I want you to hear the chain, because the chain is itself part of tonight's theme, by someone known as Safwan ibn Jamal, who heard it from his master Imam al-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him. And it comes down to us through the books, specifically Tahdhib al-Ahkam of Sheikh Tusi. So hold the two. The daily covenant is the daily renewal. The Arbaeen visitation is the 40th day arrival. And the morning of Arbaeen, the dawn this very night is opening into, is the one morning of the year that the two become a single act. We keep its eve tonight together and renew the covenant before that dawn. And one more to close the night with, the same one we open every night with, the closing lines of Ziyarat Ashura, the greeting to the souls in the courtyard and the pledge to stand with Imam al-Hussein until the Imam returns. That is our living pledge, and we say it together at the very end. 3 texts: a daily covenant, a 40th day visitation, and a standing pledge. But before any of them, before there was an Arbaeen, before there was a Karbala, before there was a you or me, there was a covenant older than all of it. We begin there. Please give me a salawat and we look at the first covenant renewed.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
Open the 7th chapter of the Quran, the chapter of the heights, Surah Al-A'raf, at the 172nd verse, and listen to the oldest scene in the history of the human soul. God says, "And when your Lord brought forth from the children of Adam from their loins their descendants and made them bear witness over their own souls, am I not your Lord? They said, Yes, we bear witness, lest you should say on the day of resurrection, we were unaware of this." We've read this verse before. It was the floor we stood on in the second night, the oldest covenant on earth. But tonight, I need you to hear one word in it that we let slip past before. And it is the word the whole of this series is built upon. When God gathers every soul that will ever live and asks that single question, am I not your Lord? Look at the verb he uses for what he does to them. وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ, he made them bear witness. And look at the word that they, or rather we, answer with. Bala shahidna. Yes, we have borne witness. So you see, the very first thing every human being did before we had a body, before we had a name, before time had even started, was to bear witness. We are all Shahada before we are anything else. The witness is not something we've been trying to become across these 15 nights. It's something that we've been trying to remember. This whole series has been a recovery of the oldest memory that there is. Now I can tell you what Du'a al Ahd actually is. It's not a new promise. Rather, it's a renewal every single morning of the promise that we had already made before we had been born. Listen to the heart of it. The believer at dawn putting the covenant back on his own neck. In Du'a al Ahd, and you can find the reference in the write-up, we say, O God, on the morning of this day, and for as long as I live of my days, I renew for him a covenant, a pledge, and an allegiance upon my neck, from which I shall never turn away, and which I shall never abandon. Every morning, on the morning of this day, and for as long as I live. The covenant of al-A'raf is not a thing that happened once in pre-eternity and then was filed away. It is a thing that we re-sign every dawn. And because nothing in this religion ever lets the word witness go for long, listen to where the same supplication ends. It asks God to place the believer among the helpers and defenders of the Imam and among al-mustashhidina bayna yaday, those who bear witness who are martyred in his presence. The covenant prayer itself is shot through from the first line to the last with Shahada. We renew the covenant of the witness every morning with our own hearts, mouths, and our souls. So now let's look at what the covenant actually is, an allegiance. So now hear the three words again, because the middle one and the last one are heavier than we usually let them be. Ahdan wa aqdan wa bay'ah, a covenant, a contract, and an allegiance. Bay'ah, the pledge of the hand. Du'a al Ahd is, in the plainest possible terms, the believer's daily renewal of his oath of allegiance to the Imam of the age. May our souls be his ransom and may God hasten his return. And here I have to say something carefully, because it is the living edge of our faith and I'm not going to blur it. The Imam of the age is in his occultation. We cannot put our hand in his hand. Therefore, in his absence, that same allegiance, that same bay'ah, flowing through the same channel, is held by the one who guards the Imam's cause in our time. That is the Wali al-Faqih. In our own time, it is Imam Sayyid Mujtaba al-Husayni al-Khamenei, may God protect him. This is the living end of the very chain we traced on the 11th night. The chain in which said Zainab, peace and blessings be upon her, did not carry the imama, but rather she guarded it. The chain in which the line is kept, the line is protected, and the line is handed forward until the appointed hour. The hand we cannot reach reaches us through the one who keeps the trust. And because I can hear the honest question forming, which is, what does it even mean to give allegiance? Is this not the very thing that tyrants demand? Let me answer it plainly, the way we have answered things across this series. We have built this answer slowly. It is the covenant verse of the second night and the 14th. Among the believers are men who were true to their covenant with God. It is the lesson of the 10th night, that the imama is a covenant, not a crown, held by divine designation, not by bloodline or by force. Put it all together and it comes to this. Allegiance, in our tradition, is not blind obedience, and it is never coercion. It is the binding of oneself to the axis of truth. It is allegiance first and foremost to God, then to the proof that God appointed, then, in the absence of that proof, to the guardian who keeps the proof's cause alive. And notice what that means about the man that we pledge to. You give your allegiance to him only because he is bound to the truth. God forbid the moment he leaves the truth, the allegiance does not follow him. The allegiance only follows the truth. This is the exact diametric opposite of the tyrant's demand. The tyrant says, be loyal to me and I will define the truth. The covenant says, be loyal to the truth and measure even your guardian against it. That is why this allegiance is the only one in the world that truly leaves a man free. We will come back to that word free before this night is over. It is the hinge the whole ending turns on. Please give me a salawat and we move to know the truth and you will know its people.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
But there's a hidden danger right over here, and I'm not going to leave everyone standing at the edge of it. If allegiance follows the truth, if you must measure even your guardian against the truth, then everything rests on one key thing, that you actually know the truth. And on this, our tradition turns the whole instinct of our age on its head. The instinct of the age is, find the confident voice and follow him. and take your truth from him. Hear first the word of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, his family, and his righteous companions, about the one man in whom the truth and the person were never at odds. The reference is in the write-up. Prophet Muhammad said, the truth is with Ali, and Ali is with the truth. The two shall never part until they return to me at the pond. Meaning Kawthar. The truth and the man, one thing, to the very end. That is the criteria. And now hear how the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali himself, peace and blessings be upon him, taught his companion Al-Harith to use that criterion. Al-Harith, who in the confusion after the Prophet was doing exactly what so many do now, trying to find the truth by asking which men were on which side. Again, the reference you can find in the write-up, Imam Ali said, the religion of God is not known by men, but by the sign of the truth. So know the truth and you will know its people. Do you hear the correction? The religion of God is not known by men, but by the sign of the truth. You do not find the truth by first choosing the men and then trusting whatever they say. You come to know the truth first, and then the truth shows you its people. Not follow the man to find the truth, but know the truth in order to find the man. That single reversal is the whole distance between a covenant and a cult. So the covenant lays a duty on each and every one of us, and that duty is the duty of learning. You have to come to know the truth, really know the truth. And that means you cannot pick it up as a rumor from, for example, a confident stranger with a large following somewhere. The truth of this religion is deep water, and it is learnt the way deep things have always been learnt, patiently, from those who have actually gone down into it, from qualified, God-fearing scholars who took the years, the decades in order to learn it. And here's a gentle word, the same one we spoke on the 12th night, because the danger is genuinely real. Not everyone who dresses like this or climbs a pulpit is a scholar. There are imposters, men who wear the dress of learning for money, or for fame, or for a following, and who will sell you a confident answer that they do not have. But our tradition gave us the marks of the true one, and they are the opposite of what the age rewards. The real scholar guards himself before he guards you. His learning has made him humble, not loud, and he is never too proud to say the 4 words that the commander of the faithful called half of all knowledge. I do not know. Learn from that one, and be wary, gently, without bitterness, of the one who is never uncertain and is always for sale. Because here is where it all comes home. When you have done the work, when you have learnt the truth from those who truly carry it, you will not be lost about where to give your allegiance. The truth will have shown you its people. You will know the axis you are bound to, and you will know, in the absence of the Imam, may our souls be his ransom, may God hasten his return, who it is that guards his cause. That recognition is not a leap in the dark. It is the fruit of knowing the truth. And the full account of it, what the Wilayat al-Faqih, the guardianship of the jurist, actually is, where it comes from, and why it is the natural end of everything we have said tonight, is an ocean far too deep for the hours left to us on this final night. To rush it here would be a mistake and wrong. So I will only say this. We will take this up properly in its own right in a dedicated series of study that continues our work beneath the lantern of the path. For those who wish to come, the door will always be open and the pace will be measured, because the truth is learnt slowly, over years. It is not swallowed in a single night. But for this night, in that grave, at that grave, it is enough to know that the chain has not been cut, that the guardianship is held in trust by the Wali al-Faqih of our time, Imam Sayyid Mujtaba al-Husayni al-Khamenei, may God protect him, and that the allegiance we renew at dawn flows through him until the Imam of the age returns. This is the fruit of knowing the truth. The rest we will walk together in due course. One last thing about this first point, and then we walk out of the dawn and onto the road. You may be wondering, all this weight on the 40th night, all this on the visitation of Arbaeen, but is the practice itself solid, or is it something the centuries grew fond of? Let me set your feet on rock. The Arbaeen visitation does not rest on any story or any later fondness. It rests on the Imam's own words. Imam Hasan al-Askari, the 11th Imam, peace and blessings be upon him, taught, and Sheikh Tusi has preserved it, and you can find the references in the write-up, that the believer is known by 5 marks. Imam Hasan al-Askari taught us, the signs of a believer are 5. The 51 units of prayer, the visitation of Arbaeen, wearing the ring on the right hand, placing the forehead upon the earth, and saying, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, aloud. You can find the reference in the write-up. 5 marks of a believer. And one of them is simply this, that he comes to Imam al-Hussein on the 40th day. The visitation you keep this evening and tomorrow is not mere decoration. It is one of the 5 things by which the faith itself recognizes you. The covenant made visible on the body. Please give me a loud salawat and we move on to These Are Not Empty Rituals. Now I have to stop because I know exactly how these 5 marks can sound to an ear that's been taught to be suspicious of religion. 51 units of prayer, a ring on a particular hand, a word said out loud, a forehead in the dust. To that ear, this is the whole problem with religion in a single list. Arbitrary, inherited, mechanical. The thing my parents did that mean nothing. If that were what these were, they would deserve to be set down. So let me be clear as I can be. In this religion, nothing we are asked to do is arbitrary, and nothing is mindless. Hear it from the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, himself. You can find the reference in the write-up. Imam Ali said, He, God, did not send the prophets foolishly, nor reveal the books in vain, nor lay worship upon his servants as an empty burden. And if you fear the mindless inherited habit, or rather, if you fear that mindless inherited habit is what this religion is, hear how the Quran itself speaks of exactly that. Of the people who do a thing only because their fathers did it. In Quran, Surah al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, 2nd chapter of the Quran, verse number 170, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, And when it is said to them, follow what God has revealed, they say, no, we follow what we found our fathers doing, even though their fathers understood nothing and were not guided. The Quran makes your objection for you. It condemns religion without understanding harder and more firmly than any secular critic ever has. And it ties the fault to the one thing this faith will not tolerate, the refusal to use your reason. And then, so no one ever mistakes the outward act for the point, God says something staggering about the greatest sacrifice a pilgrim can offer. In Surah Hajj, the chapter of the pilgrimage, 22nd chapter of the Quran, verse number 37, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Their flesh will not reach God, nor their blood, but what reaches him is the God consciousness from you. The meat does not reach God. The blood does not reach God. The outward act by itself reaches nothing at all. What reaches him is what the act builds within you. And there is the key to the whole of the religion. Every practice we are given is a vehicle, and the cargo is the making of a human being. The form is never the point. The form is merely the means. So the 5 signs are not 5 boxes that we can tick. They are 5 instruments, each shaped to work one specific change in the soul. Let me show you quickly, because you will feel the sense of each the moment it is named. Firstly, number 1, the 51 units of prayer. A believer is known not by doing the minimum, but by wanting more of God than the minimum requires. 17 of those units are obligatory, what we call wajib, the duty that every Muslim owes. But the sign is 51, because the remaining 34 are voluntary. The ones no one is punished for leaving. That is precisely the point. Fear can drive anyone to do the minimum. Only love gives the overflow that was never required. God himself says why. In a hadith Qudsi, which is, as I've explained before, a hadith which is attributed to God. You can find the reference in the write-up. God says, "My servant draws near to me with nothing more beloved to me than what I have made obligatory upon him. And my servant keeps drawing near to me with the voluntary acts until I love him." The commander of the faithful named 3 kinds of worshipper. The one who worships for reward is a merchant. The one who worships from fear is a slave. And the one who worships out of gratitude and love is free. The extra 34 are the worship of the free. Secondly, the visitation of Arbaeen. And here I must shut the door that has been left dangerously open. A believer is one who does not forget, who keeps the covenant of witness alive and renews his allegiance to the one who stood for the truth. That is the sign. But hear me very carefully, because this is where people go wrong, and where the enemies of this path would love for us to go wrong. This is a visitation of the heart, measured by intent, not a feat of the legs, measured in miles and kilometers. The sign is not, "Walk to Karbala or you are no believer." God lays on no soul more than a soul can bear. A sign that required a plane ticket to Iraq would shut out the poor, the sick, the imprisoned, the one 1,000 borders away, and could never be from the fair signs of a believer. You keep the ziyarah, the visitation, wherever you stand. You recite the visitation with your face and your heart turned towards Imam al-Hussein. And that is the ziyarah, whole and complete. We saw it with our own eyes only last night. Jabir, old and blind, who could not have walked that road in his youth, let alone at his age. He is the first pilgrim and the template for each and every one of us. And the Imam told us plainly that your whole pilgrimage may be to cross your own living room to the place where you pray. The walk of 20 million is one beautiful form of the ziyarah. It is by no means the definition of it. The definition is the turning of the heart. And that door is open to every believer on earth, on any carpet, in any condition. And the scholars see how deep this sign runs. Ayatollah Jawadi Amali notes that in this very hadith, the Imam sets 2 pillars side by side. Prayer, the pillar of the book, and the visitation of Arbaeen, the pillar of the household. The 2 things the Prophet left us and told us never to let part. Thirdly, the ring on the right hand. A believer's faith is not confined to the grand gesture. It shows in the smallest, most constant detail of the body, even which hand wears a ring. Now it seems the smallest of things, and that is the wisdom of it. A faith that lives only in great moments is not yet faith. Faith is what has soaked into the ordinary, down to a ring on a hand. And it is the right hand, the hand of action. So the reminder sits on the very instrument that you act with. Imam al-Kadhim, peace and blessings be upon him, gave us the reason. You can find the reference in the write-up. Imam Kadhim says, because he was the leader of the companions of the right after the messenger of God, and it is a sign for our followers by which they are known. Number 4, the forehead in the dust. A believer brings the highest part of himself down to the humblest thing there is, his brow to the bare earth, because a worship that does not lower the ego is no worship at all. You cannot press your forehead into the dust 5 times a day, every day, and still nurse an arrogant heart. The body drills the soul. And notice what we are told to prostrate upon. Bare earth, not carpet, not silk, not gold, not silver, bare earth. Imam al-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, gave a reason so rational it should quiet every cynic. The reference is in the write-up. Imam Sadiq says, because prostration is submission to God, so it is not fitting that it be upon what is eaten or worn. For the children of this world are slaves to what they eat and what they wear. And the one prostrating is in the worship of God. So let him not place his forehead upon what the children of this world worship. Hear how deeply that cuts and how it rhymes with everything this series has said about the arrogant and the enslaved. The world makes people slaves of what they eat and what they wear. When you refuse to lay your forehead on those things and lay it on the plain earth, you are declaring with your body that you are no one's slave except God's. The humblest act in the religion is also the most defiant. And number 5, saying Bismillah out loud. A believer is not ashamed to name God out loud. He begins everything openly in the name of God, refusing to make his faith a private embarrassment. Others may whisper it or even drop it. The believer says it plainly, so that the first word is the act of God's, and everyone can hear that it is. Imam al-Rida, peace and blessings be upon him, wrote to the Khalif al-Ma'mun, and the reference is in the write-up. He said, among the pure essence of Islam is the saying of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, aloud in all the prayers. And of all the words to say aloud, it is the one that names God as Rahman, the most merciful, and Ar-Rahim, the most compassionate. The believer's first public word is not fear and not law, rather it is mercy. That is what he wants the world to hear him begin with. So put the 5 together and look at what you actually have. These are not a checklist of random or arbitrary acts. They are a portrait of one life turned wholly toward God, love beyond duty, loyalty that will not forget, devotion in the smallest thing, the ego brought to the ground, and God named openly as the first word of everything. That is not mindless dogma. It is the most reasoned, most examined way of being a human being that has ever been offered. And it is what the 40th day and the covenant we renew at dawn are made of. So the chain we trace from Abel is not only behind us, it is a lived thing, a reasoned discipline, never a rote habit, as we have just seen. It is daily, and it is happening in you and in me at dawn on each of our own necks, whether we notice it or not. And once a year, that private dawn covenant stands up and walks. Please give me a loud salawat and we move to Arbaeen, the covenant that walks. So tonight, as we sit here, the largest gathering of human beings anywhere on the face of the earth is on a road. Tens of millions of people, more than the population of some nations, are walking from Najaf to Karbala, on foot, on these very days, towards a single grave. And millions more are walking with them in spirit, from London, from Dearborn, from Sydney, from Martinique, from everywhere in the world, from this carpet tonight. And here is the thing worth saying plainly. It is the largest peaceful gathering on the planet, and hardly a single newspaper in the language most of us are sitting in has ever bothered to even try to understand it. The world's biggest act of love, and it is nearly invisible to the world. What is it? What are all these feet doing? They are praying. That is the theology beneath the walk, and it is the whole of point 2. The body itself becomes the supplication. On the 12th night, we learned the word murabata, the holding of the line, the guarding of the seam, as a grade of worship. On the 13th, we learned the grades of witness. And here on the road to Karbala is the whole ummah living both of them at once with its feet. The frontier held by walking, and the witness born by arriving. The visit is not tourism. The visit is a pledge. And the words of that pledge are the closing of the Arba'een visitation, or Ziyarat Arbaeen itself. Listen to what the pilgrim says when his hand finally touches that blessed grave. And you can find the reference in the write-up. This is from Ziyarat Arbaeen. O God, I take you as my witness that I am a friend to whoever befriends him, and an enemy to whoever shows him enmity. And my help is made ready for you until God grants you leave. So I am with you, not with your enemies. I take you as my witness. Even the visitation begins by bearing witness. My help is made ready for you until God grants you leave. That is not a tourist sigh at a shrine. That is a soldier reporting for duty across 13 centuries. I am with you, not with your enemies. That is the covenant of the dawn, walked into a road and spoken over a grave. 20 million people this week are saying that sentence with the whole of their bodies and their souls. And let me ask you something we almost never ask. How do we even have these words? You and me sitting on a carpet, on a chair in the West, in a century the Imams never saw. How is it that we can open a small book and read the very supplication that Safwan heard from Imam Sadiq's own mouth? Because between him and you stood a chain of men bent over desks, and that chain is one of the quiet miracles of our history. Go back to its beginning. In the year 329 of the Hijrah, the last of the 4 special deputies passed, and the greater occultation began. The Imam did not die. We have said it throughout. We have said he is alive, but he withdrew behind the veil. And a community that had always been able to send a question and receive an answer suddenly could not. And the danger of that hour was a very precise one. Not that the Imam would be lost, of course he cannot be, but that his guidance, the teaching of the second of the 2 weighty things, might be scattered and lost to a people who could no longer sit at his feet. Hear what the Messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him and his family and his righteous companions, left in our hands. You can find the hadith, the reference in the write-up. I am leaving amongst you 2 weighty things, the book of God and my kindred, the people of my house, and the 2 shall never part until they return to me at the pond. The 2 shall never part. You heard those very words earlier tonight, spoken of Imam Ali and the truth. Here they are again, spoken of the book and the household, inseparable. The Prophet held 2 fingers together to show it. When Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, the same blind old Jabir, who was our first pilgrim last night, rose and asked, and who is your kindred? The Prophet named them one by one. Ali, Hassan, Hussein, and the Imams from the line of al-Hussein to the day of resurrection. The last of them is the very Imam who is tonight in his occultation. So this was the task a generation of scholars took onto their own backs, to keep a whole people's grip on that rope through the long centuries of absence, so that the book and the household could never be prized apart in our hands. And they were not random men. And this is not a story that we're merely guessing at. We are telling it in full, week upon week, in our Wednesday evening sessions, in our Mahdawiyya series within the Lantern of the Path. You can find all the details at truthpromoters.com. We have already sat with the generation that preserved the tradition when the light was hidden. With Shaykh al-Mufid, the beneficial one, who gave the school its backbone of reason, and with the two brothers of Baghdad, Sayyid Radi or Sharif al-Radi, who gathered the scattered words of the Commander of the Faithful into Nahj Balagha that sits on your shelf, and his elder brother, Sayyid Murtada, also known as Sharif Murtada, whom they named Alim al-Huda, the banner of guidance, who carried the whole school on his shoulders for a generation, and who spent himself and his wealth keeping its students fed and moving. And soon, inshallah, after Arba'een, we will sit with Shaykh al-Saduq, who tells us himself that, troubled to his heart by the doubt spreading about the occultation, he was moved after seeing the Master of the Age to compose a book that would settle the matters, and therefore he wrote the well-known book Kamal ad-Din, the perfection of religion, to steady the community in the absence of its imam. And to Shaykh al-Mufid, something happened that we must not pass over, because it is the very heart of what tonight has been about. He did not only labor for the hidden imam from afar, the hidden imam wrote back. There survived letters, what we call tawqi'at, signed replies, signed letters, that from Imam al-Hujjah, Imam al-Mahdi, may our souls be his ransom, that reached Shaykh al-Mufid from behind the veil, addressed to him by name, saying, to the upright brother and the rightly guided friend, Shaykh al-Mufid. You can find the references all in the write-up, of course. And in one of them, the line that I really want you to reflect on and take home with you. Again, the references in the write-up. For indeed we, and this is from Imam Mahdi speaking to Shaykh Mufid, for indeed we encompass in full knowledge all the tidings of you, and nothing of your affairs is hidden from us. Do you hear what that does to the whole story of the scribes? These men were not scribbling in the dark, abandoned, hoping someone was still there. The very Imam whose guidance they were preserving was watching over them, holding the rope from his side of the veil while they held it from ours. Nothing of your affairs is hidden from us. That is the occultation in a single sentence, not an absence, rather a hidden presence. The Imam, we have said all night throughout this season for years, is alive, is also near. And they did it at a cost and through the coming and goings of empires. When the Seljuk armies fell upon Baghdad, they put the Shia quarter of Al-Kharq to the torch, and they burnt its libraries to ash. And here's the thing that you must not miss tonight. The very book that I read to you at the beginning, the Tahdhib, where Ziyarat Arbaeen and the 5 signs of the believers are both preserved, is the work of Sheikh Tusi, the student of these two brothers, whose own library was among the ones that burnt. He gathered what he could carry and he walked south and began again in a small town called Najaf, the town from which this very week 20 million people are walking towards Karbala. They burnt his books. He built the school that made the road. The rope did not break, and it kept not breaking. Alam al-Majlisi gathered the ocean of traditions into what we know as Bihar al-Anwar. Sheikh Hurr al-Amili bound the narrations of the law, and Sheikh Abbas Taqummi pressed the whole tradition of supplication into the one small book, the Mafatih al-Janan, that sits in each and every one of yours home tonight. Remember the 13th night, the scholar's ink against the martyr's blood. These men are that ink. The chain of witness runs straight through the chain of the scribes. So when you open the Mafatih tonight and read the words of Ziyarat Arbaeen or the visitation of Arbaeen, know exactly what you're holding. The far end of a rope that 1,000 careful hands across 1,000 years and more and through the fires of empire refused to let fray. And here, on the last night, I can finally give you the thing this entire series has quietly been building to. But before I do, please give me a very loud salawat and we move forward.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
You see, this covenant is not only an annual walk and a daily dawn. It is a rhythm, a whole life's worship, set to a measure you can actually keep. We have touched each of these on its own night. Together, and tonight, God willing, I gather them into one breathing whole, the way you would gather 5 lit things into one lamp. The believer is formed by 5 practices. Every morning, Du'a al Ahd, the daily covenant that we've just reviewed. 5 times a day, the testimony itself, La ilaha illallah, there is no God except God, said in the obligatory prayers between 15 and 18 times in each prayer, around 65 times across the whole day. We learnt on the 10th night what that is, the daily refusal of every false lord of the heart. Negation first, there is no God. The chamber swept of every idol, the inner Pharaoh, the inner Caesar, the inner Yazid, and then the affirmation, except or but God. 65 times a day you clear the throne room of the soul and name its only rightful king. Every Thursday night, Du'a Kumail, the prayer Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, taught to Kumail ibn Ziyad, in which the believer asks for the one thing that makes a scattered life whole. You can find the reference in the write-up. He says, Imam Ali teaches us in Du'a Kumail, so that my deeds and my devotions may all become a single devotion, and my standing in your service may be everlasting. And every Friday on each of the Eids, Du'a Nudba, in which we recall the word of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, his family and righteous companions, to Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him. Again, the reference you can find in the write-up. And faith is mingled with your flesh and your blood, just as it is mingled with my flesh and my blood. The mukhalata, the witness works so deeply into a person that it becomes part of his very fiber. In the pure ones, that mingling is intrinsic. In us, it is cultivated. And these 5 practices are how it is cultivated. And every Arba'een, the 40th day, Ziyarat Arbaeen, the visitation that we will keep tomorrow. 5 practices, daily, weekly, and once a year. And now hear the verse that crowns the whole of it. The prayer of Abraham, peace and blessings be upon him, that the Prophet himself was commanded to declare, and that gives us the 5 practices, their single orientation. This is of course from Quran, Surah An'am, the chapter of the cattle, 6th chapter of the Quran, verses 162 to 163, where Allah says, Say, my prayer, my rites of sacrifice, my living and my dying are for God, the Lord of the worlds. He has no partner. With this I have been commanded, and I am the first of those who submit. Do you see what these 5 practices are actually for? They are not 5 separate duties merely to be checked off. They are 5 hands shaping one thing, a whole life turned into a single act of witness. My prayer, my sacrifice, my living, and my dying, all of it, one thing for God. The Thursday prayer, Du'a Kumail, asks for it, that my devotions may become a single devotion. This verse declares it. And the 5 practice rhythm kept across the years is how an ordinary, non-infallible believer is slowly built into it. That is believer formation. That is what Arba'een is the annual high tide of. And it is the same chain, the perfected human at the end of the road we are all walking, that runs by God's protection through Imam Khomeini, through Imam Khamenei, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, may God rest both their souls, and through the living guardian of our time, Imam Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei, may God protect him, until the appointed hour. That is the witness lived. Not declared once and then put on the shelf. Lived on a rhythm by tens of millions this week while we sit here. You are already in it. So now there is only one question left, and the whole series has been walking towards it. Now that you know, what will you do between tonight and next Muharram? Please give me a salawat and we move on to the closing call.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عاجل فرجهم.
I'm going to ask you to carry 5 things home. Not 5 new things, 5 things you already own, because you earned them across these nights. Let me hand them back to you, named so you cannot put them down. Number 1, we know the word. Martyr means witness. We took it back from the people who use it to mean victim, and from the people who use it to mean killer, and from the people who make it a beautiful poster emptied of its blood. We will not let it be stolen, hollowed, or made into mere decoration. We know what that word means now. We will guard it. Number 2, we know the chain. From Abel in the field to a child in the dungeon of Sham, to the martyrs broadcasted into our phones, it is one chain. We have hung the links on it ourselves, and we have felt it take the strain. We will recognize its links when they appear, even when the newspapers call them something else. Number 3, we know our frontier. Each one of us has one. It's not always a battlefield. It is your desk in your home, in the marriage you are fair inside of, in the income that you keep clean, in the quiet refusal in your heart and chest to bow to a thing that you were told to bow to. We learnt on the 12th and 14th nights the empire begins in the heart, and so does the resistance. We will stand at our frontier, the one that has our name on it. Number 4, we know the supplication. The covenant every morning. We are in the chain whether we notice it or we don't, and it is better by far to notice it. So renew it at dawn. And 5, we know we will be asked. The Imam sees, the Imam waits. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family and his righteous companions, has told us that he rejoices when we learn. We will be asked, where is your brother? And tonight, for the first time in this whole series, we're going to be able to answer. And now, having handed you the 5, let me turn for the last time in 15 nights and face you fully, because a series does not end with a list. It ends with a heart. Let me say 3 last things and let them be warm, because maybe we've earned that warmth. Across this whole series, we've traced a single fault line, the Quran's own fault line, between the mustakbirin and the mustad'afin, the arrogant who exalt themselves over the servants of God, and the oppressed whom they grind down. We named it in full on the 14th night. I'm not going to reopen that argument tonight. Tonight, I only want its warm and luminous heart, so that no one ever mistakes us. We are against no people. We love all of humanity. Every soul on this earth is the creation of God, and we are commanded to love what God creates and what God loves. We do not have an enemy among the people of the world, not by nation, not by faith, not by race, not anyone, not anything. Our quarrel is with one thing alone: the satanic arrogance, the istikbar, that sets itself against the truth and works to enslave the creation and servants of God. We disavow the throne, never the person, and we disavow it for the sake of the very people it tramples upon. And here is the freedom hidden inside of that. Hear the verse, Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, verse 256. God says, "There is no compulsion in religion. The right way has become clear from error. So, whoever rejects the false lord and believes in God has grasped the firmest handhold which never breaks." One verse, and it does 2 things at once. No compulsion. We never force a soul. And whoever rejects the taghut, the false lord, the arrogant tyrant, and holds to God, has grasped the handhold that never breaks. To reject the arrogant is not hatred. It is how a human being becomes free. And listen to the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali himself, peace and blessings be upon him, writing to his own son. You can find the reference in the write-up. Imam Ali said, "And do not be the slave of another, for God has made you free." God has made you free. This is the whole of our political theory in 9 words. We refuse to be the slaves of any man, any throne, any empire, any market, any false lord, because we are already the servants of God, and a servant of God is the freest creature there is. We are slaves of God alone, and that is the only real freedom that there is. Now, there are people who tell the world that this religion of ours is something dark, that it is harsh, that it is after some monstrous law, that it wishes the world ill. I'm not going to argue with them tonight. I'm not going to spend the last night of this series defending us against a caricature, because to argue with a lie is to give it air it has not earned. I'm going to do something better. I'm going to show you what this religion actually is in 3 small windows, and let the beauty be the answer. So the first window. You think you know what salam means. Peace be upon you. We say salam alaikum when we meet each other. The thing we say hundreds and hundreds of times a day, a week, a month, whenever, until it slides past us like a mere habit. But hear what it actually is. Imam al-Baqir, peace and blessings be upon him, was asked one time by his companion, "Do you know who the Muslim is?" And the Imam answered. The reference is in the write-up. The Imam said, "The Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hand other people are safe, and the believer is the one whom people trust with their wealth and their lives. And it is forbidden for a Muslim to wrong his brother, or to abandon him, or to push him away in a way that hurts him." This is what Salamu Alaikum or peace be upon you means. It is not hello. It is a covenant of safety. When I greet you with salam, I am telling you in the oldest currency that there is, you are safe from me. My tongue will not harm you and my hand will not harm you. I will not wrong you and I will not abandon you. You can put your life in my hands. That is the burden carried in the word we throw at each other so very lightly. Peace be upon you means, colloquially speaking, I will genuinely take a bullet for you. That is the religion they tell you to be afraid of. The second window. Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, wrote to Malik al-Ashtar, the governor he was sending to Egypt, the most famous letter on just rule in our whole tradition. And at its heart, he tells him how to see the people he will govern. You can find the reference in the write-up. Imam Ali told Malik al-Ashtar, "For they are of 2 kinds, either a brother to you in religion or your equal in creation." Hear what that does to the question this whole series is built upon. Where is your brother? God's first question to the first man. Who is your brother? Imam Ali answers it for all time. Everyone. The one who shares your faith is your brother in religion. And every other human being who has ever lived is your equal in creation, which is just another way of saying brother. There is no human being on this earth who is not the brother of the question. Where is your brother? He is everyone. He is the person beside you right now. And the third window. And this is the one I promised you, the truth that frees. We do not want to convert anyone. We have no interest in coercing a single soul. We are truth promoters. That is the whole of our work. It's even our name. We hold the truth up and we let it do what the truth does. And what does the truth do? Hear it in 3 voices across 3 traditions, because the truth has been saying the same thing in every tongue God ever gave a prophet. Hear it first in the Psalms of David, peace and blessings be upon him. You can find the reference in the write-up. and I will walk at liberty, for I have sought your precepts. Hear it then from Jesus, the son of Mary. May our souls be his ransom and may God hasten his return. Again, you can find the reference in the write-up. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And hear it at last in the Quran, where the freedom and the truth are the same handhold we held a few moments ago. Quran, you can find the reference in the write-up. There is no compulsion in religion. The right way has become clear from error. The psalmist walks free because he sought God's word. Jesus says the truth itself liberates. The Quran forbids compulsion because the truth needs none. 3 traditions in one sentence. The truth sets you free, and so we never have to force it. We just hold it up. That is what it means to honor another tradition without conflating it with our own. To say, we share this much, the truth is one, and where our roads part, we are honest about the parting, and we never raise a hand. The best answer to everyone who says our faith is darkness is simply to light the lamp and let them see by it. And the door stays open. This is the 15th night, and so it is the last for now. And I don't want to end it the way a film ends, where the lights come up and everyone goes home and khalas, finished, done. Because all 15 of these nights are one thing, one body of work, one argument built link by link. And I want you to be able to walk back through it whenever you need it. So it's all there, gathered at reflections313.com and at truthpromotes.com. Go back and walk the road again. And more than that, I want this to be the beginning of something for any of you who might want it to be. If something we said tonight or in any of these nights has caught you, or if something you heard somewhere else has confused you or troubled you, and you don't know who to ask, then ask us. Reach out. We have a channel, and we have a door, and it is wide open. I will tell you honestly, we do not have all the answers. I can say that with complete certainty, we do not have all the answers. But we will not leave you holding the question alone. We will look, we will research, and where it is beyond us, we will take it to our teachers, to the scholars of the Hawza and Qom, among those who taught me and those who are still, by God's kindness, a mere message away. There is no compulsion in any of this. No one is selling anything to you and no one is recruiting you. But if you have a question, we'd love to hear it. The door stays open. We would rather walk on with you than wave goodbye. Please give me a salawat and we move to the final point, which is we must rise.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
And so we come to the end. And I will not lie to you about Arbaeen. It's heavy. 40 days of grief reach their full weight tonight, and they should. But hear what we've actually been doing across these 15 nights. We have been packing. We have been provisioning ourselves for a journey. And the Quran tells us on the road of pilgrimage itself what to pack. In the Quran, Surah Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, second chapter of the Quran, verse 197, Allah says, "And take provision, but the best provision is God consciousness. So be conscious of me, O people of understanding." We have learnt the map. We have walked the path. We have packed the only provision that lasts. And there is only one thing left to do with all of it. We must rise. That is not my phrase. It was the cry of an entire people a mere weeks ago when we laid our beloved leader to rest. When Imam Sayyid Ali al-Husseini Khamenei, may God rest his pure soul, was carried to his grave beside Imam al-Rida, peace and blessings be upon him, in Mashhad on the 9th of July of this very year, on the very eve of the martyrdom of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, peace and blessings be upon him. According to various figures, 20 to 43 million people walked his body to the earth. And the answer they gave their grief was not to lie down. It was to rise. Qiyam Lillah, to rise for God. And we gathered that same week for the Unbroken Trust, and we said it there also. And it is the Quran's own command. In Quran, Surah Saba, the chapter of Sheba, 34th chapter of the Quran, verse 46, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Say, I admonish you with only one thing, that you rise for God in twos and singly." In twos and singly, together and alone. The 40 million on the road, and the single believer at his own frontier in his own home. The same rising. The walk to Karbala is Qiyam Lillah, the rising for God, performed with the feet. Two things changed us this year, and I want you to take them both home. We buried our leader, and we learned what it is to rise, and we walked, all of us, through the whole theology of witness. And a thing learned this deeply must move us closer to God, or it was never truly learnt. So let us rise, and let us rise with our brother. Because now we can answer that oldest question. 14 nights, that question has closed the night. Where is your brother? Asked the way God first asked it, as an accusation over a body in a field. Tonight we ask it one last time, and it's not an accusation anymore. Where is your brother? And the answer comes back, at last, without effort, reflexively, the way you know where your own hand is. He is exactly where he should be. He is beside us on the road. His hand is in our pockets. We did not pass him by, and we did not leave him in the field. We are walking together to Imam al-Hussein and to Imam al-Mahdi. That is the answer 15 nights were for. The candle has burnt. The candle has burnt every one of these nights on the grey stone in front of you. One small flame, alone for 15 nights. And the Master Shaykh Mutahari told us what a candle is for. The candle burns in order to illuminate. We are the candles now. The light we received across these 15 nights was not given to us to keep to ourselves. The only proof that the light was ever received, the only proof, is the light that we give. So tonight, watch the stone. The one flame is not alone anymore. So tonight, the maqtal does not take us down to a death. For the first time in 15 nights, it takes us to a homecoming. There was a road that began 40 days ago with one blind old man and the friend who steadied him. And tonight that road arrives. The first pilgrim's hand comes down on the grave. The caravan of the freed household returns its face back towards Karbala. And the living and the dead stand in the same place once more. And there at the grave on the 40th day, the maqtal stops being a telling and becomes a liturgy. We renew the covenant together, out loud. And the tears we weep are not the end of anything. They are the seal of a covenant freshly renewed. And the voice that will carry you there is the voice that you have come to know across all of these nights, what we call the Mahdi Maqtal voice. And imagining in clear English of the voice of the Imam of our age, our living hidden Imam, may our souls be his ransom and may God hasten his return, speaking to us from behind the veil. Not a living man's voice, but a vessel for his words. It is that voice, the same voice that broke on the 10th night at the trampling and that came home 4 nights ago at Jabir's grave. Tonight, for the first time in the whole series, it is whole from the first word. Because tonight is not a death. It is the homecoming it had been waiting for. So let the candle stand as it stood on the grey stone through every one of these 15 nights. But watch it tonight, because tonight, at last, it does not stand alone. One small flame will catch from it, then another, until a handful of humble lights burn beside it, leaning their brightness together into the dark. The one flame on the last night becomes many. Come with me then, for the 15th and last time in this series, back to the grave on the 14th day. So we've renewed the covenant at the grave. The candle is still burning on the grey stone, and beside it now a handful of small flames burn alongside it. Now, before we rise to go out into the night, for the last time in this series, we turn our faces back to God and we lift our hands. O God, we have nowhere to go but to you, and no one to ask but you, and no words except the ones you placed upon the tongues of your friends. O God, by the right of the souls that alighted in the courtyard of Imam al-Hussein, by the right of the covenant you took from us before we had bodies, and the covenant that we renew every dawn, accept from us this gathering, and these 15 nights, and make them not the last of our covenant with the people of the house, and with yourself. O God, send your peace and blessings upon our Master Hussein, the Master of Witnesses, and upon Sayyid Zainab, who carried the witness out of the field and into the courts, and upon Imam Sajjad, Imam Zain al-Abidin, who held the line with a whispered prayer, and upon Al-Abbas at the river, and Ali al-Akbar and Qasim, and the children of Karbala, and the companions who would not leave, and the little Sayyidah Ruqayya in the ruins of Sham, and Muslim, the ambassador in Kufa, peace and blessings be upon them all. O God, and upon the witnesses of our own lifetime, whom we have learnt to recognize for what they are, Imam al-Khomeini and Shaheed Mutahhari, and Shaheed Beheshti, and Shaheed Mufattih, and Shaheed al-Sadr, and Sayyidah Bint al-Huda, and Shaheed al-Hakim, and Sayyid Abbas, and Hajj Imad, Sayyid Hassan, and Hajj Qasim, and Hajj Abu Mahdi, and our beloved Imam Sayyid Ali al-Husseini Khamenei, struck down in our own year. May you, O our Lord, rest their pure souls, all of them, and gather us with those that they loved and with them. O God, preserve for us the guardian of the affair, the Wali al-Faqih of our time, Imam Sayyid Mujtaba al-Husseini Khamenei. May you protect him, O our Lord, strengthen him, guide him, and keep him firm upon the path until the appointed hour. O God, and the ones no one counted, the children of Gaza and of Lebanon and of Yemen and of Iraq and of Syria and Bahrain and Kashmir and Parachinar and of every place of Minab and of every place on this earth where a candle is still burning, so that the rest of us can see, gather them to you, and do not let their light have been given in vain. O God, make us of those who rise, mathna wa furada, in the crowd and alone, on the road to the shrine and at the frontier of our own homes, for your face alone. Make our prayer and our sacrifice and our living and our dying for you, the Lord of the worlds. And keep us every morning in of the life that remains to us, true to the covenant upon our necks. Until the Imam of the age rises, may our souls be his ransom, and may you, O our Lord, hasten his return. And he returns and he finds us exactly where he left us, standing. Let us, O God, before we leave this room, recite 3 verses that we recite at the close of each of our gatherings. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Indeed, we belong to God, and to him do we return. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. And the wrongdoers will soon know at what goal they will end up. And hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. God is sufficient for us, and he is the best of guardians. And our final pledge tonight. O God, we will not cease. By your mercy we shall remain steadfast, every Wednesday and every Saturday, beneath the lantern of the path, seeking to learn, seeking to earn our way, seeking to live by the light of the teachings and by the trust you have bestowed upon us, through Muhammad, your chosen one, through the pure al-Bayt, through the noble scholars, the honored bearers of this inheritance. We shall endure in service, strive to prepare the ground and pave the way. For the return of our Master, may our souls be his ransom, and may you, our beloved Lord, hasten his return. We shall remain in his absence, loyal, without excuse, without exception, without wavering, to the leader, Imam Sayyid Mujtaba al-Husseini al-Khamenei. We shall labor without rest, and we shall supplicate without weariness, with longing hearts and ardent prayers, for the return of the Master of the Age. May our souls eternally be his ransom. O God, accept from us this small offering, make firm our steps upon this path, and do not sever us from the banner of loyalty, from the road of service, and from the hope of return. We will not cease. Amen, O Lord, sustainer of the universes. Amen, O most merciful of the merciful. Wa akhiru da'wani alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.